Call this meeting to order. The Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. We're going to start off with a student spotlight. I usually do that right before we start. So, do we have our softball team here?
Yeah, we have some of them.
Wow, you four carried the whole team.
Boy, they had to really...
Well, ladies, come on up. Come up on the stage then.
More than enough room.
They had to cover a lot of ground.
You can come up these steps and then come behind these fellas and ladies and...
Right.
So I'm not real sure if anybody paid attention, but we had another state competition level team this year for our girls softball team, and it was a tough loss. I think it was probably my fault because I turned on the radio right around the time that the one run came in, and you know I jinxed it. At least that's what my kids would have told me. But we want to recognize this team for doing this 2 years in a row, and I suspect you're planning to do this again next year. You know, see how far you can get, right? All right, so this team was comprised of one senior, correct? Emily Schultz, and we'll be returning everybody else. Well, we hope everybody else will be returning, right? So that was Paige Maribel, Sydney Huff, Hannah James, Kaya Hannon, Macy Iddings, Ella McNeff, Gabrielle Wood, Elena Kolsakavage, Mackenzie Hannon, Erin Van Ness, Serenity Kerr, and Emily Patton. And our coaches are Bob Hedgedy, Ron Hamsey, Erica Yanora, John Walsh, and Mark Raposa. So how about a round of applause for these girls and their coaches and the team who make us so proud. Congratulations. I'd like to see you guys do all the great things you're going to do next year. And I'm going to give you guys these certificates, right? Or do you want to hold them?
No, Mr. Bosher.
Okay, we'll give them Mr. Bosher. But we have Emily's. Let's see, we need... I'll give you Ken's. You know what, Mr. Doherty, why don't you start your superintendent's discussion while I get these?
Well, I'd like to say one thing, if
Okay.
I may.
Yeah.
I just want to point out for these girls on the softball team, they were the district champions and the eastern half of Pennsylvania champions, and they went into the state finals, and it was a super close game. But here's what's most important in my opinion. I would be in the weight room in their off season. I would be at the track in their off season. And Coach Hedgedy and his staff had all those kids either in the weight room, on the field, or in the batting cages. So the reason that they got as far as they did is because that team and that coaching staff is committed on excellence. And that's what separates you guys from a lot of other people that were sitting at home. And I just want to commend you. I think you guys did a great job.
And just to build on what, that's a little loud. I help coach junior high and 9th grade baseball, and we always use you as the example to try to get our boys motivated, because trying to get them committed to, like Bill said, to win, it's not by accident that you were there. And so I want to thank you for that. You were super entertaining to watch. I only got to see the playoffs, which happens every year because of our schedule, but just congratulations on a great season. I'm looking forward to seeing you next year. And Emily, best of luck.
Yes.
Holly, I've got a word I'd like to say.
Okay.
I've been following these girls since Little League. And at this point, I've made a decision. I've got a 30-foot flagpole I would like to donate to the softball team for on their field. It was my mother's. When the house was sold, the new people took it down. And where I am, it can't be seen from the road or anywhere. And I think it would be best served for the softball team. It's a 30-foot pole,
That's nice.
and I would like to donate it.
All right. Thank you, ladies. Have a great night. Okay, well, I'll just mention that we had 2 executive sessions since our last meeting. One was on June 20th to discuss collective bargaining agreement strategy, and then we had another one this evening, and that was for personnel matters and also the collective bargaining agreement. You're up, Mr. Doherty.
Thank you. I just want to reiterate before these young ladies take off that, since our last meeting, obviously these young ladies went on a tremendous run, and I've been very fortunate, probably to be at close to 20 of their games, and they are a very special group. They made it all the way to the PIAA state championship at Penn State University. Like Dr. Perbola said, they're the champs on the eastern half of the state of Pennsylvania for 2 consecutive years. I mean, they're the team to beat in the East. And although they lost by just 1 run, which is a tough pill to swallow, and these young ladies showed it. Their play, it electrified our school district and our community. And the team is filled with outstanding student athletes, but they excel both in the field and in the classroom. And they're great kids, and I'm so very thankful to have been one of the many fans that got to cheer loudly at every game for our young ladies. So again, congratulations. Thank you. You made the district very proud. It's been another month, another great month for our school district. Since our last meeting, we've had graduation. Our ladies played in the state final, and we sent students to Atlanta for the National Skills USA Quiz Championship competition. Graduation was perfect. It was an absolutely perfect evening. It was June 3rd, and I was honored to address our seniors and certify them as Tunkhannock area graduates. Our student speakers did an exceptional job, much better than I did. Being that it was my first graduation ceremony as superintendent, it'll forever, be very special to me. It'll hold a special place in my heart. And it made me so very proud to be the superintendent of our fine district. If you recall, last month we actually honored our Skills USA students as they were the Pennsylvania state champions. And just last week, the students went to Atlanta to compete in the Skills USA National Championship. And although they fell, just short of their goal, we're very, very proud of their accomplishments and how they represent our school district. They represented us with great character. On Memorial Day, our marching band was featured as part of the parade and part of the ceremony that took place at the courthouse immediately afterwards. On a day that, we reflect on the sacrifice that's made by those who have died in service to our country. It was very special to see our marching band students play such a large and important role. There are a couple of items on tonight's agenda that I want to mention. The first is the passage of a budget for the 2022-23 school year. And the district had a tough year. I don't know if there's another way to say it. Expenditures outpaced our revenue by just over $1.4 million. Our reserve fund, it took a hit. Having a strong fund balance is critical for every school district. It protects the district in the event of facilities emergencies or increases in big ticket items, such as state-required contributions to PSERS, retirement system, and a strong fund balance should be the goal of every school district. Regarding our budget, which will be discussed later this evening in detail, approximately 75% of it is tied to contracts for salary and benefits. And really, if you look at it, the remaining 25% is tied to inflation. And as inflation increases, so do our costs. My team and I, Dr. Suppan, Christine Parrish, we work very diligently to increase efficiency, within the district. Everything's examined. Student scheduling continues, and Mrs. Egan is overseeing that. We're determined to use the best way possible our dynamic teaching staff. We evaluate class sizes and teaching assignments every single day. No decision is made lightly. I promise you that. We will continue to make decisions and recommendations that are on the best interest of our students and that are financially responsible to our taxpayers. Additionally, I've tasked our principals with reaching out to parents within our district that have children that attend an outside charter school or an outside cyber charter school. We've been speaking with parents, inviting them to have their children return to our district, inviting them in for tours if they want to see the facilities. If we're successful, that would greatly benefit our school district, and we may potentially need to add some staff based on the number of students that return. Also tonight, I'll be asking the board to review and update our health and safety plan. Now, the state requires us to review our document every 6 months. The updated version that's on the agenda this evening is less restrictive than the previous versions. Tonight's document no longer includes a mask recommendation, or does it include any kind of contact tracing. So they're the major changes to the health and safety plan. I feel like it's important to mention that next Sunday on July 3rd, the Tunkhannock Rotary Club is hosting a great community event at our stadium. The gates will open at 6, the live music starts at 7, there will be a military color guard, and of course there'll be fireworks at dusk. I'll be here, I can't wait. Admission is free, but the Rotary Club will accept donations if people would like to donate. Our senior class, our incoming senior class, will operate the concession stand, and I'm hoping for a great turnout at this fun family event. And finally, at a previous meeting, we asked for approval to start a therapy dog program, and after the board approved, the idea evolved very quickly into a reality. And I know I did briefly, but I'd like to introduce everybody to our newest addition to the Tunkhannock family. Sunny, our therapy dog, is here. Sunny will play a beneficial role, especially at the intermediate center. Kate Crispin, we can't thank her enough, school counselor Kate Crispin, for giving Sunny a loving home and for undertaking the extensive training required for both Sunny and Kate. There's a lot that goes into it. So please feel free to introduce yourself to Sunny, and Sunny will introduce herself to you. But I'd also like to congratulate Kate Crispin. She is just put out a children's book. It was actually #1 bestseller on Amazon yesterday. So congratulations to Kate Crispin. I did buy it yesterday, so it'll get autographed. Dr. Perbola is also getting an autograph for Ms. Crispin's book. So congratulations, Kate. But I'd like to thank Kate and Sunny for coming to this evening's meeting. And again, anybody in our audience that would like to meet Sunny, Sunny will make way around. Thank you very much, President Arnold.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Doherty. Any public comments on agenda items? Public comment is 4 minutes. On agenda items only, must be a resident pleased to speak at this point, or a student or staff. And I don't have my book in front of me, so I think Sheila knows the deal.
Is that on?
Should I just talk loud?
There we go.
There
Oh,
it
there
is,
you go.
okay. I think summer's finally here, thank you. Sheila Donnelly, I live in Tunkhannock Township. I do have a question, first of all, about the health and safety plan. And Mr. Doherty said
Yes.
there was more or less restrictiveness on the masking and contact tracing.
Yes.
So on page 128, I believe, that I just had a couple of questions, concerns for your consideration.
Okay.
Let me find where, because it looks different than it does on my computer. Okay, so I'm sorry, page 127. Universal correct wearing of masks, I think it's the first one there, A. It says masking protocol will only be changed by a school board vote, which is great, or PA state mandate. We got in the mud last year on that one because mandates are not laws. So I just want to remind everybody of that. If that word "or" comes into play there, that might be of a concern. So just wanted to point that out. Mandates are not laws. And then the other thing I definitely wanted to point out, and I think it's fine, contact tracing, I think it's the same thing you've always been saying is we're not going to do it. And that's item E on the next page. And we're not doing contact tracing.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
And then G will offer in-house vaccine clinics from outside providers for families that may need any type of school-age vaccine or students and families that want a COVID vaccine. So that was approached, I think, last year, and then it didn't work out for some reason
It was because
with the vaccine clinic.
people didn't sign up for it.
Okay. So is that just going to still be on the table, or?
We
is that a
actually
discussion?
have a vaccine clinic that's scheduled for, I want to say the first week of September. It's on a Saturday. But that's not strictly for COVID vaccines. That's for any vaccine that a child may need to stay in school.
So are the parents being informed about this? Because that has been a concern
Absolutely.
for parents across the country, to turn our schools into health centers and clinics and medical facilities and that kind of thing.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't mean to cut into your time. I apologize.
That's okay. I'm just, I'd like the
But we
feedback.
are running that because we have to now start enforcing, if kids aren't vaccinated, that they have to be excluded from school after so many days. So,
Not for COVID.
no, not for COVID, no, but,
You're right.
The
so
other
we are
requirement.
bringing a provider in, so have that option if we do have students that are not vaccine compliant, that parents can have the option of getting them free here.
Okay.
A lot of, we're just trying to make it as easy as we can for parents.
So just to be, everyone to be aware that this is just a hot topic. It's not always a good thing to turn your schools into a vaccine clinic, a medical clinic, that kind of thing. It can lead to Pandora's box of things. So, and then, let's see. Sorry, I had a lot of notes. About the budget, that's a big chunk of things from page 76 to 87, and thank you for printing that out about the budget. I didn't realize that we were missing 1.4 million this year. We didn't hit the mark. So is tonight the night that is going to be voted on about tax increase?
Yes.
The board is it's on the agenda tonight for
It's on the agenda.
consideration.
Okay, because I was looking, and I looked at it for 2 hours, and it wasn't clear to me about a vote for tax increase for the taxpayers of Tunkhannock School District. So I want to please ask you, on behalf of myself and the Citizens Advisory Committee of Tunkhannock, please find a way to not raise taxes. We have so much on our plates right now, all of us. So just please, I realize that we were really, all of us had a tough time with the district budget, et cetera, and all of us as personal families and individuals are really struggling. So I would just like to remind everyone about that. Increase in taxes, it's a tough one for us. So please, if you can find a way to not do that. And I really had a tough time finding your item for increasing taxes tonight on the budget, on the agenda somewhere. I looked and looked, and I don't see
The budget
it
is.
somewhere. It's in the budget, but I read it all, and I
Yeah,
see where it
it's
says.
item, unfinished business, item 5, because there are
Okay.
4 options. So there's one
There's
that
4.
doesn't
I
raise
saw that.
taxes, 1, 2, and 3 mills. So
I
that's,
saw that.
yeah.
That's
we'll
what
have
that
to
is.
deliberate
Okay.
and see what.
That's what I thought. That was just the options that we have. But I didn't see anywhere where there was a vote for increasing taxes tonight. Is that on there somewhere? I didn't see it anywhere.
That is the budget. So when we pass a
That's
budget,
the
it's
budget.
part of
Okay.
the
Okay. I'm kind of new
levying
at this, so
taxes
I'm,
goes with the budget.
thank you. I'm kind of new at this, so I'm just trying
no
to figure it
problem.
all out, what it all means. Okay, I think that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Sheila. Any other public comment on agenda items? All right, seeing none, we'll move on to the agenda. Item number 6, enrollments are there for everybody's information. Item 7, approval of the minutes from the May 26th, 2022 Public Works Session and Board Meeting.
Motion to approve.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Bennett?
Yes.
Mrs. Eckert?
Yes.
Mr. Franco?
Yes.
Mrs. Galvo?
Yes.
Dr. Perbola?
Yes.
Mr. Widener?
Yes.
Mr. Burke?
Yes.
Mr. Farr?
Yes.
Mrs. Arnold?
Yes. Item number 8, business and finance. Do we have a motion for items 1 through 6?
Motion to approve 1 through 6.
Do we have a motion? Second? Paula? Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Eckert?
Yes.
Mr. Franco?
Yes.
Mrs. Goebel?
Yes.
Dr. Pravola?
Yes.
Mr. Weidner?
No.
Mr. Burke?
Yes.
Mrs. Bennett?
Yes.
Mr. Farr?
Yes.
Mrs. Arnold?
Yes. Item 9, Superintendent's report. What do we have, Mr. Doherty?
I'm sorry, I recommend a resolution be adopted approving the personnel report as presented.
Do we have a motion?
Motion approved.
Do we have a second?
Second. Lord.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Franco?
Yes.
Mrs. Goebel?
Yes.
Dr. Pravola?
Yes.
Mr. Weidner?
Yes.
Mr. Burke?
Yes.
Mrs. Bennett?
I have a question. Is this for number 1 and 2, or just 1?
Just one.
This is number 1.
Yes.
Mrs. Eckert?
Yes.
Mr. Farr?
Abstain.
Mrs. Arnold?
Yes.
Item number 2, recommend a resolution be adopted approving the following people approving conference attendance as listed. Do you want me to read those individually?
No. You don't have to. Do we have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Yes, I have something to say.
Okay.
There's 3 of them on the agenda that have already happened. I'm hoping in the future that we can get them on the agenda and approved before they actually happen. They actually occurred last week. That's it.
Any other discussion? Okay, roll call, please.
Mrs. Goebel?
Yes.
Dr. Pravola?
Yes.
Mr. Weidner?
Yes.
Mr. Burke?
Yes.
Mrs. Bennett?
No.
Mrs. Eckert?
Yes.
Mr. Franco?
Yes.
Mr. Farr?
Yes.
Mrs. Arnold?
Yes. Committee reports. I believe we had one public committee meeting. Do we have a committee report, Mr. Widener?
We had a transportation committee meeting tonight before at 6 o'clock. And some of the discussion, and that'd be under unfinished business. We have discussion on possible motion to approve a fuel cap for the transportation contractors. Now, there was different numbers kicked around. I'm not sure if I have all the updated ones, but at one point, we had talked about possibly $5 for diesel and $4 for gas. Now, that may have changed. I'm not 100% sure.
That's up to your recommendation,
Now, that's a number
or, I mean, up for discussion.
Yeah, now
I mean, once
that's
there's a
the number
motion,
to bring
when we
to
get
the
to that
board.
point.
Want you to think about it a second, and we've got to do something with our contractors. Without our contractors, we have no students. So I'll put that in the form of a motion. $5 for diesel, $4 for gas, unless somebody voted up or
We have
down.
a ballpark as to how much that's going to cost us right now if we put that in place.
We did. We've been running numbers all the time. For instance, from March to the present, if we had paid a $4 cap for gas and a $5 cap for diesel, we would have paid approximately $6,000, of course, those 3 months. Now, it's small, but most of that was in May or June when prices really started raising. There wasn't, it wouldn't have been that significant in March, but April, May, and the 8 days of June was significant. At the end in June, when we were paying, the gas price was $4.13, and the diesel price was $5.56.
And that's without taxes.
That's without taxes. So I would say that that number yearly is probably in the neighborhood of about $30,000. If gas prices stayed what they were in May or June.
Yeah.
If it goes up,
Then we're gonna pay more. Are you gonna say something?
So do we have, and I guess maybe I missed it, I wasn't at the meeting, did we have hard data on, I said hard data on estimates, yeah, how about that one? Do we have some data on estimates moving forward, and is this mandatory to vote on tonight?
I'd say we should vote on something tonight because we've kicked it down
Okay,
like three
okay.
meetings
Fair
now,
enough.
but,
I know.
I mean, this is not a dictatorship, so whatever the
No,
pleasure of the board.
So based on the data that has been accumulated, what's the recommendation from the committee? What are we looking at?
I think Bill
He-
said
his rec-
five
yeah,
for, five
it's
for
4 and
diesel.
5 for diesel, 4
Five
for
for diesel and
gas.
4 for gas, and
And-
it's a $6,000 difference? Just for a couple of months. For those months.
And we can't really set a date because we don't know where the prices, if they're gonna go up or down. We gotta, you
So
know.
if we put something
I
in
think we can
place
put it
with
in
this,
for
can we
us to have this.
revisit this in, let's say, October? That's an arbitrary date.
That would be a good idea, I think.
Yeah, we gotta have-
See-
we have a-
See where prices
Yeah,
go.
If we're gonna do something, let's put something in place with an expiry, and then we talk it before then to see how it's going with the prices.
Yeah, because this will affect the summer program too.
absolutely.
Yeah, right.
So we will have bus utilization over the summer.
You know, some of the things that our contractors spoke about, in fact, very, very eloquently, was that it's getting very costly to even put buses on the road. And, you know, they make a valid point that some of our contractors have even spoken saying they may not be interested in running our summer programs because of the cost. And certainly I understand their concern.
So is that a good alternative to set this, put it on the floor for a vote after we discuss it and put a time frame on it? And then revisit it, October, by the October meeting?
1st?
October, well,
Yeah.
do we need date of school?
October meeting, right.
Yeah, let's just go to the October meeting and get it back on the agenda for discussion and a possible vote at that time?
I mean, we could do it, make sure we review it quarterly.
Yep.
So we have additional data, but we do need something for the contractors. Okay?
I think it's all
I
right.
agree, we need something with the contractors, but there's a way that we could share the burden going up. We don't know how high it will go, and that will also cost the taxpayers as well as the contractors. If we could set a level and then the district take care of or pay for half the increase,
He wants to
And
split it, he wants to say whatever.
the contractors pay
They
half.
they pay half.
I like setting a hard cap because then our contractors know what to plan for, and then we revisit it in a couple of months. So Phil, I don't disagree with you around like cost sharing. It's just, I think that this item goes in tandem with the next one too. So, they're both related. It seems to me like on this fuel thing, if we set it for a few months, then we just come back and see how it's going
Because we have been kicking the can down.
for a few months.
Right.
I'm going to pause that there because this was the committee report. Are there any other committees that need to meet?
sorry.
And then we can move on to the next agenda item. Do we need to schedule any meetings?
Did you guys talk about the virtual days too in committee meeting or not?
We spoke about it a little bit, yes. That's the next,
Yeah, we did.
Line item.
We spoke about the virtual days, and I think the board has some discussion when we get to that item for action. I think they have to determine what action the board wants to take for this previous school year, but also what do we do moving forward. I like that one of our neighbors moving forward, one of the districts right around us, they guaranteed payment for 178 days. So they would pay for 3 out of the 5 FID days, which I think is a pretty good idea. I'm certainly not telling the board what to do, but that would be, moving forward, that seemed like a pretty good idea.
Because that's going to be the more expensive. So this is a committee report still, right? So we can
Yeah.
discuss this.
Do we have any other committees that need to schedule a meeting? Okay.
Now, in committee, we also talked about, and I don't want to jump over you, Bill, but in committee, we also talked about the possibility of bidding out our fuel services, where we go for fuel.
I think in this day and age, it's not a bad idea. Do we need a vote for that?
No,
Okay.
No, if we want to take action on that, there would need a vote.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think it's our fiduciary duty to bid it out, because if we're going to be covering part of that, of the extra cost, we got to see what's most fuel efficient.
Right. I'm not aware that when it was done previously, so I mean.
Cost efficient,
Yeah,
not fuel
so we'll get something out for, that people could bid on. And then we'll bring that to the board for
Okay.
action.
And I'll just report that the teachers' negotiations continue to move forward.
All right.
Love it. All right, well, unfinished business. Item number 1, which we've already kind of jumped there a little bit, discussion, possible motion to approve a fuel cap for transportation contractors. Mr. Widener came out of the committee as the committee chair with a recommendation of a it's $4 diesel and $5 gas, or am I saying that backwards?
The other way
All
around.
right, the other way.
The other way around.
$5 diesel, $4 gas.
Fuel cap.
Fuel
Yes, ma'am.
cap. And this would be,
Revisited again in October, did I hear?
October meeting.
okay, well, we just need a motion that says all that.
I made that motion.
Okay, so we have a motion that we set the fuel cap at $4 for gasoline, $5 for diesel, and we revisit this at the October meeting.
Correct.
That's a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Can we have a roll call, please?
Dr. Pervola?
Yes.
Mr. Widener?
Yes.
Mr. Burke?
Yes.
Mrs. Bennett?
Yes.
Mrs.
Oh, wait,
Eckert?
abstain.
Mrs. Eckert?
Yes.
Mr. Franco?
Yes.
Mrs. Goble?
Yes.
Mr. Farr?
Yes.
Mrs. Arnold?
Yes. Item number 2, discussion, possible motion to approve reimbursement for transportation contractors for virtual instruction days, fit days, however you want to call it.
And I think this is two-pronged. We need a plan for 22, 23, and if the board so desires, what to do for 21, 22.
Two with what? I didn't hear the last part.
What to do for 21, 22, which just ended.
Oh,
Just so the board has some information, with the virtual days that our district had last year, which was 10 of them, for in-district transportation, our contractors basically did not collect. So lost contractor pay for in-district was $115,216. And for out-of-district transportation, for students that we have in outside placements, it was $31,751, which brings the grand total to $146,968, basically that our transportation contractors did not receive through 21, 22. Essentially, it breaks down to, between $14,500 and $15,000 a day.
so with what you're saying, that motion would be like 3 parts. There'd be 21, 22.
Well, if the board wants to take action on any kind of payment for 21, 22?
Two.
And then we need a plan for
The 10 days and
for
22,
22,
23.
23.
Oh, it's got to be almost 3 separate motions.
Well, definitely 2.
Definitely 2.
Well, I mean, it could be, within the same
Yeah,
motion.
okay, well, I'll start it off to make it, 178 days? That would give 3 out of the 5 days for the coming school year, 22, 23. I'll start it with that one.
And that was for the 177?
178, that would
178
guarantee,
days.
that would guarantee 178 days in the contract for the transportation contractors from 22, 23 and beyond.
Okay, so we have a motion on the table for the 22-23 school year to pay contractors a guaranteed 178 student days of transportation. Is that that's the motion?
Yes.
All right, do we have a second?
So that's 3 out of the 5 virtual days that they will be
3
paid.
out of 5 days.
Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah. See,
And the max is 5 virtual days for next year.
That's correct.
that'd be 3 out of 5 for next year.
Yes, with a caveat that nobody's anticipating big COVID issues, but they did extend the COVID closure option.
If we were actually forced to close for COVID, those could be virtual days.
But assuming that doesn't happen, the max is 5.
Yes.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah. That'd
We
be
pay for
if we
3 of
took
the
the 5
5.
virtual.
So we talked this last time, but just so folks are clear, You know, right now, we're getting about a 50% reimbursement of transportation costs. The caveat here is we're not getting that reimbursement on virtual days.
That's correct.
And so these days are more expensive than 3 days. We're essentially paying for 5.5 days instead of 3.
Correct. Essentially, it would still hit our budgeted amount.
Right. So it's about, because you said there was 10 days? And
There was.
The cost was 150,000 this past year?
Yes.
So we're looking at 15,000 a day.
Are we talking about limiting it to the the 5 flexible instruction days? Or are we gonna have anything on the books about, I don't anticipate any more COVID closures, but depending on how we word this, it makes a difference, right?
Yeah.
So,
Because
Yeah, go ahead.
I think the unknown with the COVID days is too far out there for me. I'd rather, for the virtual days, I'd rather limit it to that, put that language in for the contractors.
Because you don't know what'll happen.
We don't know. And I think voting on something that we're not sure of, but we could take a good guess living in Northeast Pennsylvania that we're gonna get 5 virtual days. So I think that payment for the contractors, I think that's fair and reasonable for the 3 out of the 5, and only list them as the flexible instruction days.
so the motion is not 178 days. The motion is for 3 out of 5 flexible instruction days if
If
they're
Bill would
used.
amend his motion, he's the one that made the motion.
Right.
So the question is that, are you,
No,
so
take
the
it out.
the question is are we paying for the 3rd virtual day or the 1st virtual day? Because it's gonna matter.
It does. You're right.
So do we get two virtual days before we start paying is the question. So we've got to word that whatever we want to
Yeah,
do.
yeah. I think we pay the first virtual day. I think we start on the first virtual day, the second, because I really believe whenever we got
Yep.
5 snow days, I mean, I've been on the board, 7 years? I think we've always had that, so
Well, let me give you a little background from what was in that committee meeting. The bus contractors get paid 10 months of the year, 18 days per month. A new bus, the one contractor said it was, around 110,000? They called him, said, no, it is now 126,800, a new bus. Their payments are $2,300 a month, and that's 12 months of the year, and 2 months where they don't have any income coming in. And they were talking about what it cost to get a CDL and all of their other requirements that they have. We've been very fortunate. I'm not trying to, but we've got a good group of bus contractors, and we need to keep them, and can't bear the whole amount, but we gotta be able to work together.
Yep.
What did it used to be?
And they're having trouble getting drivers.
What did it used to be for when there was regular just snow days? But we
We had to make them
We
up.
used to have to make them up.
So
the
made
kids
them
would
up,
still
so
come in
you had your
another day.
180 days.
But we also got state reimbursement then for those.
Right.
those were reimbursed days too. These aren't.
So let's make the motion for what you're saying. We pay for the, we pay for the first
Pay for the
3 days
first 3
of the
days
Flexible
of the 5.
instruction days.
of 5 if we use 5 virtual days.
Right. And then we see how it goes. We'll revisit it. We're trying to be fair.
Yeah.
Just,
I believe
for
that's
the
what some other
22-23
schools are
year.
doing.
right.
So we have a motion then, you're amending that motion to say that for the 22-23 school year, we'll pay the first 3 out of any
Out
5
of
bid
5.
days used.
Bid days,
If
yes.
we use them all, if we happen to use them all, or a total of 178 days if we use all of
Assuming
it.
that we don't want to,
wanna
we
put
can't say
that-
178 days because we don't know, we can assume there's not going to be anything COVID related, but that we'd have to tackle as a separate subject.
Is it worth to just go back to not using virtual days then? Why wouldn't we just revert back to the way we used to do it? Then we just, I mean, I realize it stinks, but our school year is ending early based on the calendar. So if it's 5 extra days, it's June. I don't know what, it's supposed to be the Monday. I don't remember what it is now. What is the end of the
I think it's supposed to be
June
the second right now.
So it'd be
Second.
5 extra days, but you wouldn't have to move graduation. You could just, I mean, I don't know. Like, what's the,
That would be completely up to the discretion of the board. And we
I
have
th-
bid
I
days
think-
to use.
I think there might be, I would want to see the numbers on what is the data of heating the buildings and doing the different kinds of things versus paying that, I mean, I suspect it might be a wash at the end of the day, based on what we're gonna save in having the building closed 1 day a week this summer.
Right. I mean, I like the fit option. I think it gives us some flexibility. But I mean, that's up to the discretion of the board. And that's made on a day-by-day basis. You know what I mean? Like, if we need a day, I mean, so if I call it a fit day, I mean, we could call it a snow day. There's nothing that says it has to be fit before we just say it's a throwback snow day.
I mean, I think we do have a couple built in, so like.
We do.
You
That's
could theoretically
essentially
say that
spring
the first
break.
couple snow days are actually gonna just be snow days, and then switch to fid days if we need to. I mean,
Right.
I personally, even as a parent, am kind of indifferent as to how we do that, because,
Well, I was just wondering if there was a way to do it that it's just not paying for, they're expensive days to pay for. I understand completely the contractors, like, they have a business to run, right?
Yeah.
But, so how do we do it and still get what we're paying for?
Would we get reimbursed still if they're regular snow days, or no?
Well, yes, because we would make it up with a
Because
day.
we make it up at the end.
You make the snow day up.
Right.
do we pay, like, all the cafeteria staff and everybody, all the days, regardless of whether we're in school or not?
Cafeteria staff hourly.
They're guaranteed a certain number of days per their contract.
So then, again, that's the same logic, then if it's a regular old snow day, then they're still working at the end of the year, so we're paying
Like
for.
full-time employees are guaranteed 180 days. Part-time employees are not. So if there's a part-time cafeteria staff member, no, we do not have to make up that pay.
I mean, there's a lot to this whole conversation, so like, we're not gonna
There
fix
is.
it here, because like, you can have the argument of the cafeteria,
Yeah.
just like she said.
Yes.
We actually save money by not running the cafeteria every day. We lose some money on that, so.
Yes.
But,
I do think we can still take an action on this, because if we say that if we have fid days, we'll pay them for 3 of them,
and then
we
revisit.
can choose whether or not we're gonna call
Gonna have
snow
to
days,
fid
or
day.
fid days, or wid days, HUD days, like whatever comes up between now and then.
That's something that we could decide every time it comes up.
It's always sunny in Tunkhannock.
Always sunny and
Nothing to worry
80
about.
every day.
All right. We had a motion for that. Did we have a second? I think Laura?
What is the motion? No, it's
Yeah,
just,
can we please restate the motion?
The motion was that we agree that if we utilize fid days, that the contractors will be paid for the first 3 out of the 5 possible fid days.
You need a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Widener,
Yes.
Mr. Burke,
Yes.
Mrs. Bennett,
Abstain.
Mrs. Eckert,
yes.
Mr. Franco,
Yes.
Mrs. Goebel,
Yes.
Dr. Perbola,
And just a clarification, this is for the 22-23 year.
Yes, 22,
That's-
23.
yes.
Mr. Farr,
Yes.
Mrs. Arnold.
Yes. So now we need to talk about 21, 22. By
Do-
we, I mean you.
We used 5 virtual days, then we had 10 other days last year, correct?
Right, to the total lost for contractors to $146,968. Now, some of our contractors, or I'm going to say the majority of our contractors, did continue to pay their employees. They still have, insurance. They still have,
And they're,
You know,
like I
expenses.
said, their payment's $2,300 a month, and I don't remember them saying how much their insurance was,
well, they still, I mean, it has to be paid regardless.
but,
So Paul, you've looked at the budget, is there anything that you think we can do on this?
I mean, I think it would be a tough ask to find $150,000, being that, our expenditures were way over.
We're $1.4 million over.
Right.
I think if we were in the neighborhood potentially of, if we looked at maybe some type of good faith reimbursement, some stipend for a bus and for a van, at least to let our contractors know we're hearing what they're saying. So if we were in the neighborhood potentially of maybe $1,000 a bus and $300 a van, that would equate to approximately, I think, $40,000 or $50,000, or $45,000 or $50,000.
And where does that does that get tacked on to the 1.5 that we're already in the hole, or is that money that was
No, I
allocated
mean,
for something
obviously,
else?
we still have very few dollars to get us to the end of the year. We're waiting for our accruals to come in to pay our bills through year end. I think there'll be, 50,000 left in that, and if not, we would carry that over into 22-23's budget, and we could also do that through 22-23's budget.
I'm just asking for clarification. I don't have a recommendation.
And I'm going to tell you that recommendation is not based on any kind of scientific. It was just something that had been kicked around with some of my staff members earlier today.
Now, those numbers you just said would be per day, per vehicle, right?
No, it'd be a
Totality.
one-time payment.
It'd be, yes.
So it'd just be that one time, 1,000 per each bus?
Correct.
I mean, if you want to go that direction, I mean, that's something
Okay, well,
that
that's why I
certainly
wanted
the board has to.
clarify what it was for the 10 days, or if it was just one time.
Well, the total ends up being about a third of the amount that they lost out on.
That's correct.
So that's not too bad of a recovery.
They did, that's right, get our business right.
What do the other districts do for this year?
They had the opportunity.
It's all over the place.
Oh, that's a good,
So, I'm in business as well, and and I think that, I'm assuming this, I understand, we're in a hole in the budget now. Going back in my mind, it's difficult. I love the idea of moving forward, taking care of our contractors. But when in my business, we applied for the government COVID money, the PPP money, I would hope that the contractors did the same thing.
it would have been the previous year, they would have gotten the PPP.
The previous year.
I'm just saying,
Yeah.
this is a tough one. There are community members, there are business people in the community. I think it's tough.
There were 2 rounds of PPP.
Back.
What's that, Phil?
There were 2 rounds of PPP. There was the first year and there was the second year, if you had reduced revenues.
So, I just bring that for the consideration of the board. I want to move forward. I just think with our in the whole budget going backwards, it's difficult.
We're going to talk about millage and taxes here in just a minute, so let's just keep this in perspective. If you paid the whole thing, it's $500,000.
Yes.
So, we don't have money to spare. Clearly, we want to try to make this better going forward. We just talked about fuel caps, 3 of 5 days. I don't have the answer for what happened last year. I don't run those businesses. I don't know their profit margins. I know that it wasn't easy losing those days, but I also don't have an answer to feel like, from a taxpayer perspective, we're taking our fund balance going from a projected 6.4 down to starting the year at 4.9.
Correct.
So we're not in a good spot coming into this conversation about doing anything in the past. If we were going to do anything, I would be in favor of paying out the 5 full days next year in exchange for the pain that we caused the past year versus doing anything retroactively.
That's certainly an option. We'd have to go back in and vote. And I'm just going to stay firm with, I have difficulty going backwards. I'd rather just keep moving forward. And I know we already brought the motion with the 3 out of the 5 flexible instruction days. So,
Well, instead of changing it, if you want to do 5, do 2
I don't-
from last
I
year
think we
and
could
3 for this
revisit
year
it too in
coming.
the future.
I don't know what this is a very tough situation.
All I know
We're being asked to make a decision when we don't have access to the books.
All I know is no buses, no school, no students.
So John, what would be the estimated cost if we had the 2 extra days?
Isn't it 15,000 a day?
You're really
Approximately.
You're losing really just 7 though, because you were already committed to pay the 15 a day, and so you're really just losing the state reimbursement. So we committed basically to pay 20 to 25, and so doing 5, you're basically just upping that number a little bit.
I will say though, that we're going to be talking about additional funding. Is this something that we have to, right now, we're talking about a retroactive vote. That's basically, we're trying to make people not whole, but improve their situation in the past.
3 out of 5.
I think we've already had the motion, we've already had the vote. I'm not opposed to changing it. You know, I don't know how you get more data to look at this, but we're gonna have a more difficult discussion in a few minutes with taxes.
Well, is there any motion that anybody wants to put on the table, or do we want to move forward from this? I would say that if we want, you know, we could have another vote to add 2 more days. We could have a vote to do a one-time pay, like something payout, or we could just revisit the extra 2 days after we see where the state budgets and stuff come in. Because by October we shouldn't have used any days yet, so it's not.
And maybe we will have a better handle on the budget at that point. Good point. Yep. So can we table it?
We could
I don't
table
think there's
that
anything we
part
have to
for
table.
last
Is there
year
I think,
till next meeting, see what the state budget
We've already
comes in
got
and says.
something
yeah.
prospective.
Yep, so we voted in and we voted on the motion for 3 out of the 5 days. We're not saying that the other subjects are closed, but they're closed for today. We're not gonna add another motion to the table.
I mean, I hope this is clear. If any of the bus drivers are, I mean, I can't see who's out there, but you know, if anybody's watching too, I mean, we want to work with you to be successful. You're a key part of the school, and we just don't have all the answers trying to balance these things. But you know, we're committed to work with you all to be in a better spot. So hopefully that's clear from the fuel caps, and then trying to reimburse at least to start 3 of those 5 days.
And maybe one thing we can do, maybe our superintendent and business office can look and see if there's any other examples out there from other districts that have had this situation. I would just throw that
I
out
think
there.
you guys have that data.
Yeah,
right?
they pulled that and it was all over the place.
Like we,
Maybe it was at the last meeting, I wasn't there.
Oh, I
yeah.
think it was, yeah.
like Montrose, you know, pays for those days at a rate of 23%. Susquehanna Community currently pays 180, Elk Lake pays 180, Abington Heights does nothing. Wyoming area pays, Lackawanna Trail pays up to 3 fit days. Crestwood does not pay.
That's kind of
Yeah, it's,
We'll discuss it in the future.
yep. Okay, we'll come back to that.
Okay, moving along, number 3, update on right to know requests.
there's been no additional requests received since last board meeting. In total, since last July, we received 95 right to know requests. We'll start our count anew at the next meeting. And all have been fulfilled, partially denied or denied. There's currently no outstanding appeals with the Office of Open Records. And over the course of the last year, since last July 1st, we spent $63,585 on attorney fees to review the right to know requests.
That was what, 63,000?
63,585.
It's a big number.
That's a huge number.
63,585.
20% of the mill. Or 25%.
What was that, Phil?
That's about a quarter mil.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that's a number that probably was not in the budget starting last year.
Yeah.
Right.
That was
Yes,
out of
that,
the budget number that come up.
that does include the appeals, which were all successful.
It does not include the appeals?
No, it doesn't.
Oh, it does, okay. Okay, item number 4, recommend that a motion be adopted, approving the second reading of the following board policies: Board Policy 237, electronic devices, and Board Policy 718.1, there be animals in schools.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Burke?
Yes.
Mrs. Bennett?
Yes.
Mrs. Eckert?
Yes.
Mr. Franco?
Yes.
Mrs. Goebel?
Yes.
Dr. Pervola?
Yes.
Mr. Weidner?
Yes.
Mr. Farr?
Yes.
Mrs. Arnold?
Yes. Item 5, discussion, motion to adopt the final 2022-2023 district budget.
If I can start, please, Mrs. Arnold. You know, I'm respectfully recommending that the board consider a final budget for the 22-23 school year, that you consider a 2 mil increase. Each mil equates to about $30 for the average or the median household. Should the board approve that increase, a balanced budget would be passed for the next fiscal year. Presenting and passing a balanced budget should be our goal. As I stated earlier, this past year we found our fund balance, our reserve took a hit. We had over $1.4 million in expenditures that were not covered by revenue. Our fund balance will shrink from about just under $6.4 million to $4.9 million. The passing of a 0 or a 1 mil budget will require us probably to tap into our fund balance even more than we did. In preparing our budget, we met, my team and I, we met almost daily for months to make sure that the budget we present for consideration is inclusive of all of our expenditures. For instance, last year, special education budget was over by $1 million of what was projected. That was due to cyber charter increases in the special education budget. That was due to outside placements of some students, but it was over by $1 million. And the tuition in total for our cyber charter was over the initial budget by $600,000. We have a plan for cyber. We, as I stated in the beginning of the meeting, we are calling everyone and asking them to reconsider and come back to our district and allow us to show you what our district can offer our students. Also, we've been notified that our electricity and our heating oil are up substantially. We know our heating oil is going to be increased by about $186,000 a year, and we know our electricity. We're currently negotiating rates because our rate will expire at the end of December of what we're currently paying. Currently, we're paying 5.5 cents. Right now, we're around 9 in what companies are saying that it'll be. We're looking for something in the 8s and hopefully the 7s, but either way, we're looking at a 60 to 80% increase in the cost of electricity. And being that some of our buildings are run solely on electricity, that's a big, big number. We look to increase our efficiency district-wide. For example, we were able to trim some positions where possible when staff retired, and we're going to look to do that through attrition as much as we can. Being an educator and not a finance professional, I also sought the guidance and feedback of a CPA, of a certified public accountant. I reached out because I think everybody should be able to learn and do their homework. This person examined our budget for us and told me that we were actually on the right track as far as what we were looking at through the budget, and reinforced the following items and ideas. One was something we addressed months ago was, you got to get rid of the newly formed grant-funded positions that were in the budget last year. We did that. Just because they're not sustainable. All other things aside, the advice we got, and again, it's kind of reinforcing what we knew, that we might need to raise taxes for the next couple of years solely to cover the significant reduction of tax revenue from P&G. As we talked about just about every meeting, this upcoming year, P&G alone will have a $250,000 decrease in the taxes we receive from them. That's almost a full $1 just from P&G. The following year, they go down an additional $350,000. That's $1.5 million. And the year after that, they go down an additional $500,000. So within the next 3 years, and that's almost close to $2 million. Within the next 3 years, that's down an additional $1 million in revenue just from one business, one taxpayer. And that's, that unless we cut $1 million worth of programs annually, that money has to be covered somewhere. Additionally, as I said, really 75% of our costs are tied to salary and benefits. And 25%, the remaining 25%, is really tied to inflation. And I don't have to, certainly tell anybody what inflation has been like. Anytime taxes are not raised when it's needed, our financial problem will compound. Essentially, it's a lost opportunity. And I'll say it this way: when costs increase, it really boils down to two choices. We either need to increase revenue, or we eliminate student programs, because salary and benefits are really a fixed item. A $2 million increase maintains all current programs. A 2 mil increase balances our budget for the next year. That's huge. For a median household, it would be an increase of approximately $60. And I understand that, you know, this is a big decision that you're going to have to make. That increase is going to be offset by the farmstead homestead credit. So this year the credit increases. We were notified that the average this year credit for the average credit for a household, a median household, will be $304. Last year it was approximately $240. I think it was $241. So that represents an additional average credit of about $62 per household. So as you can see, that would, an increase of 2 mils for the median household would essentially offset. So there's an additional $60 credit that offsets the $60, the 2 mil budget. That being said, that farmstead homestead, that fluctuates yearly. It could go up, it could go down. I just want you to know that information. I'll kind of close by saying this before I do my best to answer your questions, that we need to protect our remaining fund balance. We can't get into the habit of paying daily operating expenses with the reserve fund. That's a dangerous situation again, and it just makes prudent fiscal sense to protect our remaining fund balance. You know, I'll work, and Dr. Suppan and Christine Parrish will work diligently to increase our fund balance. My goal will be to come in under budget. That's going to be my goal every year. No matter what decision you make, that'll always be my goal. In the event you do choose to pass the balanced budget, you know, the goal certainly won't be to spend every cent. It'll just be, you know, what we budgeted for, we know, or what our expenditures are, we know will be covered. You know, I'm asking that you consider the balanced budget for your consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Doherty. I would add that for anybody who doesn't already realize it, as I know we have several new board members, the school districts basically have a credit score. It's through Moody's, right? Am I saying that right?
Yep.
A rating, and one of the things that we're rated by is our fund balance. And if your fund balance is less than 10% of your budget, that can start to negatively affect your borrowing capability. We have two buildings, two main buildings in this district that are over 50 years old or turning 50 years old. And we're going to be in a position probably not long from now that we need to start looking at major investments in our buildings and facilities. So it will cost us more money to borrow when we need to if we can't sustain this fund balance. So that's something that stuck with me from when I was first on the board. We had a meeting about you know, fund balances and stuff, because at that time, what was probably close to 10 million, if you go back 7-8 years ago,
Yep.
and we're at 4.9 million with a $54 million budget. So that math does not work in our favor at this time. I'll also add that I don't believe we have passed a balanced budget since I've been on the board.
Just a couple things to add. So I went back, it looked like our expenditures in 2015-16 were actually 49 million. So the projected spending is up about 1 to 1.3% a year. So the administrative team and the group has collectively done a pretty nice job over those 7 years of controlling expenses, which is great. We won't be able to do that forever without, you know, significantly cutting into programs. And you know, like we said, the farmstead exclusion isn't guaranteed, but it would put us in a position to get a balanced budget for this upcoming year. And without the ESSER one-time funding, we'd actually be running about a $1.2 million deficit. So while it's a great thing that we could pass a balanced budget, without that one-time funding, we would be eating another $1.2 million into our fund balance. And so if you look at what happens next year and then add on the P&G lost revenue, it's better to work on this problem now versus we have to come back and we're looking to pass something That's ridiculous, and so I would rather see us do small increases over time, and we should have this data for today, but if we've reviewed this multiple times on the tax increases that we have passed, and they've been significantly below a lot of the other neighboring regions in terms of where that's gone. So believe me, none of us, I don't think any of us is looking to raise taxes. It does make up 45% of our revenue, though, is local revenues, and so we just don't have a lot of other levers to pull outside of local taxation.
You know, and I'll just dovetail, I know we spoke about this in the past when we were talking about just tentative budgets. Just this weekend, discussing some issues with neighbors and taxes. It's great to say you can't raise taxes, but then the reality is this community and this board willing to look at which programs, like Mr. Daugherty said, which programs we're going to cut? Is it going to be a sports program? Is it 7th and 8th grade sports? That was on the chopping block years ago. Is it art? Is it music? Is it some other contraction of some programs? I'm not sure the community has the appetite for that either. So, you know, the reality is, and we talked about this years past, rather than no, and then in 3 years going outside the index for a monster tax increase, you know, I would just say to this board, let's look at something that's reasonable, smaller, and incremental, with the goal, of course, as Mr. Daugherty said, finding more savings as we move forward in the year. So I'm not sure there's an appetite for cutting anything, but the person I was talking to this weekend was like, I don't want you to raise taxes. I said, well, which program do you want to cut? Because we're about 1.5 million in the hole.
Yeah, that's what you said to me.
Yeah.
Or we also, I mean, the reality is, like, we know that there's been a concern about the size of the second grade classes, and you could save a lot of money if you don't hire one more teacher, but then the classes, so like you don't raise taxes, then you, by default, you can't have the staff to either cut programs because the staff's not there,
Right.
or the class sizes go up in the younger grades, which nobody wants, like, or nobody that I've talked to wants that.
Right.
So, you know, I don't.
I think every school district I've seen so far has raised the taxes.
So the programs that are in the board book are 0, 1, 2, and 3, correct?
That's
Do
correct.
we have a motion?
I just want to say a zero mil budget would create a deficit just in this year of $570,000 that we would have to look to the reserve fund for.
And 2 mil balances it, right?
Right.
Balances.
2 mil balances it, it's $60 for each household, but each household this year
Median
has
household,
What?
the average household.
Yeah.
Average.
And each household this year's the farmstead is also $62 or something.
Yes.
So it's really a net wash this year.
On average.
Yeah.
On average.
Now, I do feel it necessary to point out that resets to zero, so each year, they start at zero and decide what that's gonna be. So it's not like the savings of $300 on that this year will be that savings of $300 plus more next year. So I don't disagree with calling that out when we're having this discussion, but I just wanna clarify that it's not a matter of this will take care of that amount in perpetuity. Like that farmstead homestead, if we say that we're gonna balance it against that this year, we can't then say that again next year, because that's the same dollars.
Right.
That's correct. I mean, I get a letter in late May every year. The district gets a letter in late May every year saying what the farmstead homestead credit is.
Okay. Do we have a motion for anything?
Since I'm not in favor,
Oh, go ahead.
no, you could go ahead.
I was gonna make a motion, so you go ahead and say what you're gonna say.
I'm not in favor of cutting programs. I'll make the motion for the 2 mil tax increase.
Okay, second.
We have a motion and a second for a 2 mil tax increase. Any other discussion? Yes,
Mrs. Eckert.
Mrs. Eckert. Couldn't remember who went first, you know.
I let Bill have it.
All right, no other discussion. Can we have a roll call, please?
Mrs. Bennett.
No.
Mrs. Eckert.
Yes.
Mr. Franco.
No.
Mrs. Goebel.
No.
Dr. Pravola.
Yes.
Mr. Weidner.
No.
Mr. Burke.
Yes.
Mr. Farr.
Yes.
Mrs. Arnold.
Oh, man. Yes. So the motion passes 5-4 for the 2 mil increase. Okay, new business. Number 1, recommend that a resolution be adopted approving the 2022 homestead farmstead exclusion.
Okay.
This is to say that yes, we as a district accept that that's the number this year and we are gonna balance it out that way.
Motion approved, homestead, farmstead.
Motion for Mr. Weiner, second from Mrs. Eckert. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Eckert?
Yes.
Mr. Franco?
Yes.
Mrs. Goebel?
Yes.
Dr. Pervola?
Yes.
Mr. Weidner?
Yes.
Mr. Burke?
Yes.
Mrs. Bennett?
Yes.
Mr. Farr?
Yes.
Mrs. Arnold?
Yes.
Yes.
And just-
Number 2, TASD Visa account is there for everybody's information. Also, number 3, the same, is the summary of Kelly Services substitute teacher fill rate.
I have a question. Can I ask a question about the substitute thing?
Absolutely.
So, Paul,
Yeah.
for the date, is there a way to break out on the absences on the Kelly substitute thing? How many of them were call-offs and how many were, the teachers going to a conference or the teachers taking
Oh,
the kids to band or something?
We could get all that.
It
I
would
could,
be-
I could run any report for the board.
When you make that like calendar thing, if you can add that line, that would be really great for me, because
Okay.
when I look at those numbers,
So like if
I
it's
think they're-
professional development, if it's number of sick days, if it's number of personal days, like
I just want to
conference.
know, like, if, 60 teachers are missing, were 30 at taking kids somewhere and 30 were sick or
Understood.
or on a personal day or whatever?
Abs-
You don't need to break it out. I just wondered, like, what is the, bar chart of our absenteeism?
Absolutely.
Each day.
Absolutely.
Because some of our days are really, really high.
Yeah, on like, for example, May 13th,
May
there were
13th, there was like 62 or
69
something.
staff absent.
That's correct. Yeah, I mean, that's inclusive of,
Right.
Of everyone in our district.
Right, and that's why I was trying to figure out, like, if there were 60 call-offs, that's a third of our teaching staff. But then I'm like, there's no way. There must have been something else going on that day
Well,
or
it's
something.
not, that's not just teaching staff, that's
Right.
all
All
staff.
staff.
So that's
Or then that would
every,
be also helpful to know that, because
Yeah.
I didn't know that either.
But I look that information up all the time. I go in and we could run our own reports on that.
I think it would be helpful. I think it would be good public information too.
Absolutely. What day was that you were looking at, Mrs. Arnold?
May 13th.
Well, in 60, I don't know what the.
Well, I mean, if you look at fill needed, like that's telling you that a substitute was requested for that. And if filled, so basically 8 of those 34, so that's real safe to say those 34, for instance, were teachers.
so we don't, but we get fills for, but not through Kelly Services, like we get fills for admins and cafeteria staff and custodial.
But they get listed in Kelly?
I don't know, are they through Kelly?
The absence get listed.
The absences do get included.
Okay.
But
The
they
absences
don't
do,
get
but I don't think the fills.
They don't get, okay.
Yeah, so like, for instance, there was 34 positions that needed a teacher, 8 of which were filled, 26 were unfilled, so we had to cover 26 classrooms that day.
Right.
But some of those fill not needed, for instance, could be, it could be maintenance, it could be an administrator, it could be a guidance counselor that doesn't need a
Yeah.
substitute. It could be a nurse, that doesn't get a sub, for instance. But yeah, absolutely, we can do that.
Right.
Sure.
Okay, that'd be great. Thank you.
Okay. Item 4, recommend that a resolution be adopted approving the new renewal of insurance coverage for the 22-23 school year with Tri-County as presented.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Do we
Motion
check
and a
with any-
second. Any discussion?
Do we check with any other companies, or is just one
Try,
company been giving us?
they're our broker. So we use Tri-County and they go out and they find us the
Oh, they
rates.
find, okay.
Yes.
Any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Franco?
Yes.
Mrs. Goebel?
Yes.
Dr. Pervola?
Yes.
Mr. Weidner?
Yes.
Mr. Burke?
Yes.
Mrs. Bennett?
Yes.
Mrs. Eckert?
Yes.
Mr. Farr?
Yes.
Mrs. Arnold?
Yes. Item 5, recommend that a resolution be adopted to approve Dr. Charles Sapon as the signer on all bank accounts effective July 1st, 2022 with First National Bank and PSDLAF PMA Financial Network, replacing Mary Jean Egan.
Motion to approve it.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Goebel?
Yes.
Dr. Perbola?
Yes.
Mr. Weidner?
Yes.
Mr. Burke?
Yes.
Mrs. Bennett?
Yes.
Mrs. Eckert?
Yes.
Mr. Franco?
Yes.
Mr. Farr?
Yes.
Mrs. Arnold?
Yes. Item 6, recommend that a resolution be adopted to approve the sale of the transportation contract for buses 7 and 12 and their routes from Ben Garrison to Charlene Walters and Roger Walters Sr., DBA as Walters Transportation, effective June 3rd, 2022.
Motion to approve it.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Must be somebody thinks it's profitable.
What was that? Go ahead. Sorry, Phil.
Must be somebody thinks buses are profitable.
Dr. Perbola?
Yes.
Mr. Weidner?
Yes.
Mr. Burke?
Yes.
Mrs. Bennett?
Abstain.
Mrs. Eckert?
Yes.
Mr. Franco?
Yes.
Mrs. Goebel?
Yes.
Mr. Farr?
Yes.
Mrs. Arnold?
Yes. Item 7, recommend that a resolution be adopted approving Zezwitz, I think I got that right, Music as the recommended music instrument rental vendor for the Tunkhannock Area School District students. This recommendation was selected by the TASD Music Department.
President Arnold, if I could just give you everyone a brief background. The music department came and met with me before the end of school and said that it gets very confusing when there's multiple vendors in trying to, that can rent students. So like at an event, so if we have an open house for the music department, this vendor would be there if parents are interested in renting an instrument. This doesn't mean anybody can't go somewhere else, but the one that would be on site for us would be this one.
Okay.
This does not have any financial impact.
Right. And if a vendor is recommended, there's probably a reason because they've dealt with all of them and
I spoke directly to the music department. I said, I'm certainly open to that, but I'm not picking the vendor because I don't have the expertise to do that. So they sought out proposals from different people and then decided on which one to go with.
Great.
Motion
right.
to approve.
We have a motion, second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Weidner?
Yes.
Mr. Burke?
Yes.
Mrs. Bennett?
Yes.
Mrs. Eckert?
Yes.
Mr. Franco?
Yes.
Mrs. Goebel?
Yes.
Dr. Perbola?
Yes.
Mr. Farr?
Yes.
Mrs. Arnold?
Yes. Unless there's any opposition, I'm going to suggest putting the next two together both for the Career Technology Department. First is recommend that a resolution be adopted approving the PDE approved corrective action plan of the district's career and technical education programs in 21-22. And the next is recommend that a resolution be adopted approving an admissions policy for the career technology education and state approved programs of studies.
Again, I'll give a brief background. The state came in and audited our career and technical ed program. That is not uncommon. That's going to happen every couple of years. They made some suggestions. They call it corrective actions. Mr. Ellsworth did work on that and send them the information they needed. One of them was, when you have to submit the report, which is there. Another one is it's a requirement to have an admissions policy. It's not changing anything that we're doing. So there is an admissions policy, and that also was submitted. Mr. Ellsworth, did I get that correct? That's correct. Perfect.
So do you want both of these as one motion, or?
I would love to.
Okay. Motion to approve number 8 and number 9.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Okay, roll call, please.
Mr. Burke?
Yes.
Mrs. Bennett?
Yes.
Mrs. Eckert?
Yes.
Mr. Franco?
Yes.
Mrs. Goebel?
Yes.
Dr. Perbola?
Yes.
Mr. Weidner?
Yes.
Mr. Farr?
Yes.
Mrs. Arnold?
Yes. Item 10, motion to approve the district special education plan. Plan is available on the district website.
Again, I'll give you the update. This is something that just needs to be submitted every 3 years. It doesn't change anything we're currently doing. Every 3 years, we have to resubmit our procedures for identifying special education students, size of the classrooms that they're in. There is no change to what we're currently doing. This is just, complying with the state requirement to submit.
Motion to approve. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Bennett?
Yes.
Mrs. Eckert?
Yes.
Mr. Franco?
Yes.
Mrs. Goldberg?
Yes.
Dr. Pervola?
Yes.
Mr. Weidner?
Yes.
Mr. Burke?
Yes.
Mr. Farr?
Yes.
Mrs. Arnold?
Yes. Item 11, discussion, possible motion to approve a 30-cent increase in the cost of student and adult lunch prices. Primary and intermediate students will still receive the free lunch and breakfast as they have been.
Again, we have a federal formula that kind of advises us what our prices should be. When we ran our numbers through the formula, it advised that we should be looking at raising approximately 33 cents for a student and staff lunch. I just rounded that down to 30 cents. As we learned in our audit, our cafeteria tends to run in the red about $250,000 yearly. And I mean, it's up to the board on whether or not to take action on this. This will not impact the students at the primary and intermediate center as they still fully qualify for free breakfast and free lunch at those schools.
So the breakfast prices will stay the same? This just says lunch, doesn't it?
Yes, yes.
Trouble is, by raising prices, how many meals do we lose a day? You raise the price, you lose participation.
Is the $250,000 deficit driven then just by the high school if the intermediate and elementary school is somehow covered, or is that?
It's
covered
just
by-
our expenses outweigh our revenues by $250,000. I mean,
What was that?
our expenses outweigh our revenues in that department by approximately $250,000. But I mean, there's salary and benefits and PSERS and
Yeah.
Back when the community eligibility program became a thing where you could qualify a whole building based on the income and poverty levels of the families that encompass that building, they would run it against a formula, and somebody correct me if I'm wrong on this, but they would run it against a formula of when does it become more of a loss to us that we can't manage versus when it isn't. And so it's not a program we're forced into. We get reimbursed. We're not getting reimbursed at the rate it would be if they were paying cash. But it's a reimbursement for all of them. So we had this because of COVID for the last 2 school years. Everybody had it. Now high school still does not qualify. That will go back.
unless the student is on the direct certification list.
Right. So families and students can qualify independently, but we just don't qualify as a whole.
We don't qualify as the
building.
whole school, correct?
Okay, and if a high school student wants to buy a second lunch, that's at a higher price, correct?
Yes.
And what would the cost be with the 30-cent increase?
I don't even remember because I just know that I was hemorrhaging money to the snack bar this year.
I apologize, I don't know off the top of my head.
Jackie's up.
What's that?
Jackie Schaefer is out there.
Oh, Jackie, are you here? Oh, what does a student lunch cost? With the 30-cent increase, it would be $3.25 for lunch. So it's currently $2.95. And the staff one is currently $5.05. And the staff would go up to, and the staff would be $5.30 from no, we're going up 30 cents. We'd go up to $5.35. I'm sorry.
Well, you're not getting a Big Mac for that, so, you know. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
We got a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Any other discussion?
I think that's a huge jump in 1 year. Huge jump for families with everything that's been going on.
Right.
And now we just did a 2 mil tax increase, and now we're gonna jump 30 whole cents. That is huge. That's a problem to me. Especially with what our kids get served and the amount they get served, it's rather disgusting.
So without passing this, what was it? It was a 250. So is that $250,000 loss that you would assume it would be the same loss this next year is in the budget?
I mean, we would assume.
Can we,
Right, the free and reduced lunch stays.
Yeah, free and reduced stays. I mean, if the board takes no action, I mean, it's just, it would
Well-
remain $2.95 and $5.05.
So the families, so there is still a free lunch program. So if there are families that are really, really struggling, I'm sure if they contacted Jackie, she'd happily give them the papers or whatever they need to do to try and apply for the free lunch program. And if they don't qualify for the free lunch program, there is a reduced lunch program. I don't know what that cost is. It used to be like 40 or 50 cents back in the day. I'm assuming we've gone up a little bit from there. Oh, it's 40 cents a lunch if you qualify for the reduced lunch. Sorry.
And 30 cents for breakfast.
30 cents for breakfast. So there are options out there for the families that are struggling. I don't know anything about what that qualification threshold is, but I know that the forms used to be sent home with kids at the beginning of every year. Every kid got one. And some people, if you're already receiving other benefits through the state, you would automatically be qualified and it would just automatically take effect. And I know we haven't talked about it in a couple of years, but I know Jackie used to make a sincere effort to see if there were kids that needed to be covered that weren't already being covered, doing some due diligence on that, so.
Can I just add something to all of this? I would really like to recommend that you go back and look at using the lunch trays versus the expense of styrofoam, and giving our students silverware instead of sporks of what they're using to eat with. I think we could look at the possibility of maybe working with OVR or a different group of folks for on-the-job training for some of our IEP students to literally take the trays, learn how to use the dishwasher. I think it would be something to explore. I mean, we're raising it up 30 cents and we're feeding our kids off of styrofoam plates and using sporks or whatever they call it. I mean, they don't even get a spoon and fork. So we might want to check out the cost effectiveness of across the board with that to see if there's any cost savings to help us out with the cafeteria. Okay.
They started using it during COVID because they were plastic wrapped so that they were individual use and weren't contaminated. Napkins, everything was in
Well,
one
I think
pack.
they were actually using them before that, but, plastic silverware. But I think it needs to be looked at, and you know, I've been fighting that battle for several years, and I'm gonna continue fighting that battle.
Well, Laura is the chair of the cafeteria committee.
We will have a formal meeting. I think, are you on the cafeteria committee? So we will set up a meeting to discuss. Can we table number 11? Do we have to vote on this tonight, or?
Motion in a second.
There's a motion and a
There's a
second, so
motion
there would
and a
need to
second
be,
already.
I think Phil made the motion, right?
Correct.
Okay, so if Phil wanted to withdraw his motion,
When do we need to decide?
You don't,
we could vote on it in July.
anytime.
So, Phil, do you want to withdraw your motion, and then that'll give a chance for a committee meeting, and then we could vote at next meeting in July?
Sure, that's fine.
So do we have a motion then to table this?
Motion to table?
Second.
Roll call, please?
When we vote,
To table this item.
Mr. Franco?
Yes.
Mrs. Goebel?
Yes.
Dr. Pravola?
yes to tabling it.
Mr. Widener?
Yes.
Mr. Burke?
Yes.
Mrs. Bennett?
Yes.
Mrs. Eckert?
Yes.
Mr. Farr?
Yes.
Mrs. Arnold?
Yes.
I just want to mention, like, whatever we do, we need to start, we need to stop losing money on what we're doing. And so if we can't stop money, we need to get revenue from somewhere. We just had a split 5-4 vote on taxes, so I'm just saying, like, we've been losing money on the cafeteria forever. We either need to get the prices right, get the cost savings right, or get the tax revenue to match it, because we can't keep setting up systems that lose money and just go on with it. We're getting to the end of that.
That's almost a mill each year.
Almost a mill a year, he said.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, as long as I've
Thank you
been
for
on,
your time.
as long as I've been on the board, the cafeteria since they, into this style has been a losing thing every year, about the same, no matter how much we raise the prices. It's never caught up. And another thing, I'll tell you, when you talk about the prices, when I was growing up, my family was eligible for reduced or free lunches, but my dad had the pride, he would not do that. We paid the full price. And there's other families out there that feel the same way.
Well, and I understand that, but I was a kid who did get the reduced lunch, and we weren't proud of it, and that was a day that you had to go to a separate table in the cafeteria that was
Yeah.
away from everybody else and be given a blue ticket, and, you know, you
That
do what
had-
you have to do to feed your kids. So if that's what it comes to, then that's what it comes to. I can appreciate that, but even as a parent myself, there have been times when my kids were much younger that I had to utilize something like that, and you just have to do what you have to do.
And to mention on that, the way the program is run now is the kids aren't singled out.
Right,
in a
there is
way that
no,
would-
you go in, you punch your number in, and they don't know if you have $500 on your account to buy Doritos with, because, you know, I know some kids real well that do that, or if you are getting everything just through a reduced or free program.
And another question is, how much did we lose this year, unpaid balances at the end of the year? That was
None,
not-
because that was free lunch.
Right.
So I was gonna say, everyone was free this past year.
Wasn't free, we lost 250,000.
Well,
Yeah,
right, but I
the
mean, we
pre-
didn't,
the
it wasn't
previous-
because kids owe money
I understand that.
this year.
That was
Yeah.
from benefits and payroll, correct?
But we do have balances that are out there.
This board actually purchased those balances into the general operating budget. I want to say in February or March, we purchased about $50,000 of debt that was outstanding
From the previous years.
from previous years that was still being, trying to be collected.
We've had lengthy conversations in the past about how to try, like, do we go to collection agencies? Do we do this? Do we do that? A kid graduates and they have a balance of, you know, $400. You can't deny a kid a lunch anymore. Not that I'm advocating that
would
we
never
should,
do that,
but
yeah.
like, you can't deny a kid a lunch. You have to let them charge at lunch. None of these are new challenges, so.
Right, and I think we just need to do a complete breakdown, right down to the condiments of, are we better off going back to the gallon jug or keep the packets? Are we better off bringing back the silverware and the lunch trays and running them through the dishwasher versus the paper products that now we're paying extra that goes in the dumpster that we're sending off to a landfill? I just think it needs to be completely broke down.
Do you want to schedule that now, or do you want to schedule it later? Like,
Well, our next board meeting is in like 2.5 weeks.
Oh, jeez, okay.
well, right, but she's,
Yeah.
you know, that's what I'm saying. Do we want it, like, is this something we want to take offline? Well, okay, we're not online, that's a work thing, I guess, but,
I'll work with Director Goldblum, we'll set something
Okay.
up and get out public notice.
Yes, well, I'll email you and
Yeah.
Paul.
No, that's Tuesday.
Who's the third on the cafeteria?
I don't have that out in front of me.
It's you and I can't remember the third.
Does anybody know who the third person, are you a third person that's on that committee? Oh, Mr. Widener. So,
Oh, and Bill, okay.
all right. No, they're gonna set it up and then it will be publicized.
Post it.
Item 12, recommend that a resolution be adopted approving security upgrades for entry into district buildings, security monitoring, and annual fire systems inspections. Project will be financed with grant funds.
If you recall, when we talked about, when you approved the ESSER 3 updated projects, this was one of the projects listed. Mr. Shapolsky is here if you have specific questions. Obviously, we don't divulge too much about security, but this is a major upgrade at our entry points within the district and to our security monitoring and even our fire systems. This is a significant upgrade.
Do we have a motion?
Motion.
We have a motion for Mr. Franco.
Second.
Mr. Widener's a second. Any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Goebel?
Yes.
Dr. Perbola?
Yes.
Mr. Widener?
Yes.
Mr. Burke?
Yes.
Mrs. Bennett?
Yes.
Mrs. Eckert?
Yes.
Mr. Franco?
Yes.
Mr. Farr?
Yes.
Mrs. Arnold?
Yes. Item 13, review motion to approve the district's updated health and safety plan. Do we have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Do we have discussion? Okay. Roll call, please.
Dr. Perbola?
Yes.
Mr. Widener?
Yes.
Mr. Burke?
Yes.
Mrs. Bennett?
No.
Mrs. Eckert?
Yes.
Mr. Franco?
Yes.
Mrs. Goebel?
Yes.
Mr. Farr?
Yes.
Mrs. Arnold?
Yes. Item 14, recommend that a resolution be adopted approving budget transfers for the following departments, details as presented, athletics and STEM Academy. Do we have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Widener?
Yes.
Mr. Burke?
Yes.
Mrs. Bennett?
Yes.
Mrs. Eckert?
Yes.
Mr. Franco?
Yes.
Mrs. Goebel?
Yes.
Dr. Pergola?
Yes.
Mr. Farr?
Yes.
Mrs. Arnold?
Yes. Item 15, discussion of the results of the STEM Academy survey results.
We have, with some of, I guess one of the, I would never advocate to have less enrollment in our district, but right now with that possibility, or with that occurring, currently being about 2,100 students, we have the opportunity to have our STEM Academy in the Intermediate Center. Within its own wing, we have a space that we could allocate, a large space that we can allocate for an innovation center that could then be utilized for grades 3 through 7, not just grade 7. One of the things that I've heard lots of feedback on since I've joined our district in February was kids not being together in grade 7, about crossing the street, about them never seeing their peers on the other side. And quite honestly, I've listened. And we put out surveys to parents and students. And if you do look that, there was a very strong opinion for having 7th grade students all in one building. Very strong opinion for making sure our 7th grade students all had lockers, which is not going to happen when it's at the administration building. So I think the responses are kind of clear. Even the students responded with 3.5 or 3.4 that on a scale 1 to 5 that yes, they should all be together. So with the board's approval, we're not dismantling the STEM Academy, not by any means. That would need quite honestly a whole other process. But it's basically changing the address of the STEM Academy from the administration building to the Intermediate Center.
Where would the 7th graders be in the building? Like, is there an extra wing or something? How do they fit?
I'm going to defer to Mrs. Egan on that because we actually have it all mapped out.
Do you remember the 7th and 8th grade wing?
Lori, turn your microphone towards. Yeah.
Do you remember the 7th and 8th grade wing? That's
Yeah.
now the 6th grade wing, and then there's some random classes here. So 6th grade would stay where they are. 7th grade is actually going to be a lot of empty rooms, so they'll go right in that area. So I think we have to move one teacher, and that's it. So the kids will be in that side. They will not be intermingling with the other kids. They can use those stairs down to the cafeteria. So they'll kind of have their own world there.
And they'll have lockers then?
Oh, yeah. Yes, they'll have lockers. And, I know concerns are going to be, well, you're going to have 7th grade students in a building with 3rd grade students. And that was the first thing I said. Like, do we want 7th grade students in a building with 3rd grade students? And, just to reiterate what Mary Jean just said, like, the way it's set up, that they virtually won't have any contact with them at all. And again, I was just trying to, find a solution to some of the concerns that were brought forth, by, multiple people reached out to me. It just seems to make sense.
So I have a question. So are we going to possibly assign one, if the STEM Academy is going to now be 3 through 7?
No.
The 3 through 7 is not going to be allowed to use the STEM
No,
Academy?
they'll use the innovation space.
Well, the innovation space, okay.
Yes.
Are we going to assign somebody to operate that?
Again, I'm going to defer.
Or move a teacher?
So are you talking about the administration building itself?
No,
No.
Are we going to have a teacher in the innovation lab?
Right, for the different grade levels.
For all grade levels, yes.
Okay.
There will be a teacher there full-time in that innovation.
Perfect, okay.
Yes. Just if anybody didn't hear that, Mrs. Egan, because I know she doesn't have a mic, said yes, there's going to be a teacher assigned full-time to the innovation space. So that'll help get that space used a lot because it's very difficult for someone that's not in that area all the time to go in use all the equipment that's in there. So if there's someone in there that's very familiar with it, it'll get utilized.
So where is the innovation space then?
Yeah.
The one large room at the very end by the auditorium. Okay, so right now, I guess it's Mrs. Huslinder's who's needs to retire. We'll change that into an innovation lab right there. So seventh grade again could come down the stairs.
Gotcha. Okay, yep, got it.
And again, it should, I mean, this is just for your consideration. Certainly, if the board feels like, fine, go back and find another solution. I mean, I could do that also. And we would remain status quo essentially for the next year, or set up a schedule that has semesters on each side. But this would seem to provide a pretty good solution.
And then there are ideas being floated around of what goes in the space that's at the admin building now. So there was it Head Start or pre-K counts classroom in the IC? They'll come back over. And I'm not gonna steal any thunder, like hopefully something we have coming in future meetings to talk about what, you know.
Yeah, I mean, we'd love to see, more of a pre-K presence within our district, whether that's provided by us or provided by Hands, or it's provided by early intervention through Hazelton. We've had some issues with early intervention, just getting it staffed in the other building, and I think it would probably be a much bigger program, and if it was
In town.
Yes. So I think there's, going to be lots of opportunity. And yes, there is a Head Start classroom that's currently in the Intermediate Center that would come to the administration building.
So it's no secret that Tunkhannock is short on preschools right now. We're short
That's
on daycare in general, but we're really short on preschools. You don't have Sunshine anymore. You don't have the Tunkhannock preschool. You don't have all these things. And most of our preschool programs that are community-based are in Mahoopany or whatever, or they're full. So if we had the space to offer, that also is I don't know if it's revenue producing, but like they lease the space from us, and that also benefits the community, because even those programs that are income-based, if they have extra seats, in most cases, that don't get filled by the income-based need people, then they can open up that registration to other families that are looking for a local program that they don't have to drive to. Not any problem with the program at Keystone or anything, but you don't have to drive outside of town. You will have, so who knows what this actually ends up looking like, but
We're exploring a lot of options. And I'm really not ready to present it yet. But
Right.
We're exploring a lot of options, but I'll tell you this, from, Mrs. Egan is very strong academically. And since the day I walked into my office in this great district, she has said to me, we need pre-K options in some form in our district. And she's right.
And Mary Jean, is it correct to say that the barrier to growth right now for that program is that they don't have the staffing? So it's easier to staff something in Tunkhannock than it is in Mahoopany
Yes.
for a multitude of reasons.
So when do we have to decide on this, Paul?
On
This?
for the STEM Academy?
When is the time frame that you're looking for a response from the board?
I mean, sooner than later. I mean,
Because we got to plan for it, for an August start.
I would imagine there's some sort of savings by having people in one building, because you're not staffing multiple things. If we have to have a teacher cover, like whatever that is, there's got to be some, right? Yeah.
Right,
We
don't
save an
need housing guard,
admin
we
at
don't
some
need
point down the road, potentially.
Potentially.
Extra cafeteria coverage.
Right.
We save,
well, they walk across the street.
I was saying admin, but what I was picturing was like it was Wendy, right? The person who literally like buzzes people into the door.
Oh, yes.
Why can't I think
Yes.
Kim?
Yes, potentially. And the cafeteria, they go across the street for the cafeteria.
Yeah, so greatly simplify their
Yeah.
process. So that's your recommendation as administrative team, to go
To get them in one building, I think that's ideal. I wish I could, potentially have the option of getting them all into the IC. It's just that we would need significant renovations for that to occur. I'm sorry, all
Yeah, I know.
into the admin. I
Yeah,
apologize,
right.
but
Yeah, we can't get everybody, Yep.
So I'd make a motion to approve changing the location and address of the STEM Academy to the IC building.
So we're on item 16. We got a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion?
Would I am to believe that we would have to move some of the equipment from the STEM Academy over to the IC
Oh, yeah.
to continue the program?
yes.
So it's got to be sooner than later, so
Yes, I mean,
the
and-
staff can prepare all that.
And again, the things, we always have, I always like to have multiple plans in place. So, the plan is, should the board decide that, no, we don't want to do that at this time, the fallback is, well, we're still going to be split into two buildings, but I and Mrs. Egan, we talk about all the time that I want some kind of interaction between the two buildings. Like, we have to either have it by semester, or so the kids are not just totally separate from their peers, the entire time.
So in the discussion here, I just want to be reassured by our administration that the educational value for the STEM kids, I mean, I'm reading these survey results. There are kids that love this stuff.
Yeah, there
so
are.
We're not going to, I know financially everything's important, I get it. But the educational value and the whole idea of this STEM from, how many years ago was it, 6?
2017, and I feel confident saying that it's a far cry from what it was at that time.
I understand that. So I just want to make sure the educational value is still there for the kids. That's
And I'm
the
gonna,
big
and I'm gonna say, Director Burke, really, there was no real financial, that's not what was driving this.
Yeah.
Right.
I
But
just,
if we're going to make this move, I just want to make sure that
Right.
that value is still there.
yeah, I almost think we have to recapitalize on that space somehow, which is our plan about how do we
Great.
break kids out because we have a whole different space there that we wouldn't have otherwise, so.
And I mean, if the decision is that we don't take a vote today, I mean, we will have a fallback position and we will make it work. And we'll go back to the drawing board and come up with another solution.
I would say that it would be fair to say that the last 2 years at least, we weren't utilizing those spaces the way that they were envisioned to begin with, because only half the kids were allowed in that building. They haven't been switching buildings for the last 2 years. And,
And now we're adding third grade through 7th grade that's going to be able to utilize that space, so.
the equipment that can get moved
and
over.
the equipment that's in
Yeah,
there.
the innovation space will get utilized from students from
Right,
grade
we had this beautiful space and it was being used by 70 to 80 kids?
That's
Because
correct.
only half of that grade was over there anymore, so. All right, we had a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Burke?
Yes.
Mrs. Bennett?
Yes.
Mrs. Eckert?
Yes.
Mr. Franco?
Yes.
Mrs. Goebel?
Yes.
Dr. Perbola?
Yes.
Mr. Weidner?
Yes,
Mr. Farr?
Yes.
Mrs. Arnold?
Yes. Item 17, recommend that a resolution be adopted approving a health services contract with interim healthcare services as presented for the 22-23 school year.
This is solely for substitute nurses or if we need nurses for field trips. Would only be paid out if we use the service.
Do we have a motion?
motion approved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Bennett?
Yes.
Mrs. Eckert?
Yes.
Mr. Franco?
Yes.
Mrs. Goebel?
Yes.
Dr. Perbola?
Yes.
Mr. Weidner?
Yes,
Mr. Burke?
Yes.
Mr. Farr?
Yes.
Mrs. Arnold?
Yes. All right, item 18, recommend that a resolution be adopted approving physician and dental services as presented for the 22-23 school year. To clarify that this is something that is basically, kids are required to have these certain physicals at certain years, and if families aren't able to do that or whatever, we can allow that. This is not new, this is something that has existed in the district since I went to the district. So-
Absolutely. And the one thing we did not receive any bids on were to cover football games. So we're going to find a solution to make sure we have a physician at the football game.
So if there are physicians out there, there are 5 home games.
Geisinger has.
There's a couple positions that will be
Geisinger,
there.
Geisinger has a menu of services, to be honest with you. I think Geisinger Sports
Yeah.
Medicine can provide a PA or.
Yeah, we're going to reach out.
So they have a menu of services.
Motion to approve.
motion approved.
Motion to approve, we have a second. Roll call, please. Oh, well, any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Eckert?
Yes.
Mr. Franco?
Yes.
Mrs. Goebel?
Yes.
Dr. Perbola?
Yes.
Mr. Weidner?
Yes,
Mr. Burke?
Yes.
Mrs. Bennett?
Yes.
Mr. Farr?
Yes.
Mrs. Arnold?
Yes. 19, recommend that a resolution be adopted appointing Holly Arnold as TASD's voting delegate for the PSBA Delegate Assembly to be held in November.
motion approved. Now we got somebody to blame it on now.
What's that?
I said, motion approved. Now we got somebody to blame it on.
Right. Actually, you'll have more to blame on me because I was solicited. I don't know if it was because that nobody else wanted it or what, to be one of the 24 members of the platform committee for PSBA this year. So the things that we'll be voting on will have gone through that committee first.
Second.
Cool. That's very cool.
Any other discussion?
No. Motion.
Do I abstain from this? I mean, I don't benefit from it. No? Okay. All right, motion, we got a motion and a second. Can we get a roll call, please?
Mr. Franco?
Yes.
Mrs. Goebel?
Yes.
Dr. Favola?
Yes.
Mr. Widener?
Yep.
Mr. Farr?
Yes.
Mr. Burke?
Yes.
Mrs. Bennett?
Yes.
Mrs. Eckert?
Yes.
Mrs. Arnold?
Yes. All right, do we have anybody else who'd like to make comment on agenda or non-agenda items?
Don't everybody run at once. Sorry.
Oh,
No, Mike?
there, you're there,
Okay.
you're there.
Thanks, everybody, for your time and attention to this. Was a hard decision that you all made. I appreciate those who voted against the tax increase. In my opinion, it's never the answer, but I realize you have a lot on your plate. So I have a couple questions. I'll be brief. Do we know how much the cyber school students returning to campus would affect the budget? Any idea? A ballpark figure? Any idea?
So if it's a regular ed student, it's around $16,000 a year. If it's special ed, it's in the 30s. But it depends on the breakdown and how many come back. So we know that it went over by 400,000 more than it was budgeted last year, which, you know, was probably predictable to some. And I know we've had several that were planning to come back anyway because of the mask issue, and then we've been recruiting some to come back. So it's based on what that per student fee is, it's kind of hard to predict.
So that's a big chunk of what's going on here. And also, I was just looking at the last page, page 70 of your special ed plan did not get printed out. It gives the total number of special ed kids as 478. That's on the web page. School district 2,071, percent special ed 23.1%. Our national average is 15%. Why is it so high?
That is an excellent question. There was actually a community committee that was tasked with looking at the district before we consolidated, and actually before they were board members, Mr. Burke and Mrs. Eckert were both on that, and it was identified that we spent at that time, well, I think it was $300,000 more per year or something to the effect than other schools of the average size. Is that in the ballpark of what you remember?
It's a long time ago. I just don't, I couldn't quote that number.
Yeah. So the cause of it, has not been identified, but that has been something that has been ongoing.
Is that something that can be looked at, by professionals, or is that something can be visited as far as who makes these decisions? I realize that it's a team, and would that lower costs?
Yeah, we have a new special ed director in the district, Sheila, so
Right.
that's part of that individual who's changed roles but has expertise in that. So I know that there's been some movement on a few things already, so that's on the list, and has been a pretty big item on my radar. I mean, we're spending something like $9 million on special ed, and we're only spending like 11 or 12 on regular ed programs, and so it's a very expensive item. A lot of it to do with specific placements, and so they're looking at returning those placements and things like that.
Right. I think that's a big piece there. So I hope that gets continued on. I would encourage that. Also, my last thought is we have a Budget and Finance Committee. I know Mr. Farr is ahead of that. I'm just thinking of trying to get community involvement, stakeholders, more ideas on how to reduce the budget. I realize that you just voted to balance the budget. But this is an ongoing thing. So how can we just get more people involved, more heads together on ideas? It's hard to put all this on one person's back. I think Mr. Dougherty has to look at this mostly, and a lot of the burden falls on you. So can we get more people involved somehow, just to get more ideas on how we can get more revenue and reduce the budget that's outgoing? More heads are better than than just one person. So I'm not volunteering because I'm no good with money, but I can certainly help out with trying to find people with that, just trying to get more people for this committee, get more people in the community to help out with this, because this is a big thing to not, increasing taxes should be a rare thing. So thank you.
Thank you, Sheila.
Look at our comp plan, we want to flag by the state, and I think because of proportionality, the state average is about 18.6, we are a little bit over, but you can look at that as public knowledge. In regard to our percentages, in regard to the state percentages, pretty close, but there are some that have more than half percent down in discussion. Yeah, no problem.
Dr. Suppan was just giving some other statistics about the special ed percentages.
Hi, good evening, school board members and Superintendent Doherty. My name is Kylie Fisher. I'm a resident of Tunkhannock, born and raised, and now raising my own family here. I'm a parent of a primary center student, and I'm here tonight just to express my concern with the reduction of teachers and support staff in our elementary schools. As a parent of a kindergartner who was first starting their school experience during a pandemic, I was thrilled with the outcome of her first year. As a teacher in a neighboring district, I would often brag about how well she was doing because of the accommodations Tunkhannock had done to keep kids in the classroom and the progress they made during the small group instruction and ability to be in person. I teach middle school, so my students know their expectations coming into the classroom. Elementary teachers are the foundation of these students' education. I am in awe of them. As I chaperoned and volunteered at different activities at the primary center, the grace and patience they have is extraordinary. When was the last time you were in an elementary classroom? When was the last time you chaperoned a field trip or joined a class for kid writing? When was the last time you attended a field day event where the entire primary center was outside for a day of fun? The ability those teachers had to manage the organized chaos of emotions and energy is astounding. The demands we're putting on our teachers continue to grow with little to no support. Our students' education, safety, and well-being are at risk. We need to utilize the professionals, our teachers, to recognize what our students' needs are and how to help them be the best they can be. Instead of walking around with clipboards and timers to make sure they're finishing things in a timely manner, you need to be walking around and asking our teachers, how can we help you? Our teachers have the innate ability to get to know each student. As they get to know these students, they know which students have parents at home that are willing to help with homework, which students live with a grandparent or someone other than their parent, which students must take care of their younger siblings, which students rely on the school for meals to keep them nourished. At a young age, there's no filter with students. Students want to share everything going on in their lives. Here too is when teachers will learn of devastating news happening in the privacy of their own homes. Now take all those students and add 5 more into the classroom. Do you think the same teacher will have the ability to get to know each student as well? The demands we're asking our teachers is going to cause students to slip through the cracks. Students will not be receiving the quality education they deserve because, again, who's going to help them? Students' emotional needs will be missed. Services they could be receiving will go unnoticed. Given the recent tragedies in the world, our hearts break and we sigh a breath of relief. Our babies got to come home. But we're not bulletproof. We need to do everything we can to keep our students and faculty and staff safe. Our students spend more waking hours with their teachers during the school year than their own families. We're doing great things for our students to help them socially and emotionally. SEL was one of the best classes my daughter took this year. If we're taking such great measures for our students, what are we offering our teachers? At the end of the day, we need to look at the people and not the dollar signs. Again, I'm not saying that keeping class sizes the same during the pandemic is reasonable or financially possible. But what I am asking is you look at the issue before the start of the school year. Speak to the teachers about what they have experienced, what they have witnessed, and what they feel the students' needs are. After all, they're in the trenches with them daily. You're already predicting class sizes to be in the low 20s to the start of the year. 20 plus little kids with 1 bathroom. 20 plus students learning how to be a student. 20 plus hands in the air asking a question or needing help. There's no wiggle room for new enrollments that occur at the start of each school year or throughout the year. If you at least had 1 more class in each grade level, you would allow for the overflow of new enrollment and still maintain a class size that is manageable. we have seen a large rise in quality teachers leaving the profession. My fear is that more will continue to leave, and my children won't get the same amazing experiences I had. Please make keeping class sizes small and manageable a priority, not just for this coming school year, but the years to follow. I ask you please take this topic and have a serious discussion moving forward. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. I just want to point out that, Ms. Fisher, we are meeting tomorrow morning. Yeah. What time? 9:30. 9:30? Okay. I didn't look at my calendar, but I knew you were on my calendar for tomorrow.
I will be there.
Okay. She had sent an email with some of the same concerns, and we set up a meeting, or we set up a time to meet.
Hi, my name is Samantha Ide. I'm the parent of 2 boys in our district, one at the IC, the other at the PC. I'm here tonight also to express my concerns about the reduction of teachers and support staff, the ultimate increase in class sizes, and the reallocation of staff to our C3 Fusion program. I recently had a meeting today, actually, with our superintendent and assistant superintendent. I do appreciate them taking the time to discuss these concerns with me, but I know that many of these decisions are ultimately made through the board, so I'd like to make sure you are all aware of the concerns. We have 3 groups of people who cannot, for one reason or another, openly speak to you about this issue that affects them. Our younger students, our support staff, our teachers. While I do not speak on behalf of these groups, I feel that someone needs to speak to the issues that affect them when they cannot safely stand for themselves. As a former Tunkhannock student and the sibling of a 2022 graduate, I've been pleased with the education provided here. From our diverse elective courses and red tile shops to more recent additions of a STEM program and SEL. I feel Tunkhannock meets the diverse needs and interests of our population well. We all faced unprecedented challenges since March of 2020, but Tunkhannock area again rose to the occasion. You did your best to keep the students in the building whenever possible, learning and progressing better than many of our surrounding districts. For this, I applaud you and thank you for persevering through ever-changing guidelines, threats from community members, and the other challenges that came with each decision. My younger son entered kindergarten in the fall of 2020. I was worried, to say the least. He's one of the youngest in his class, has a speech delay, and struggles to control his emotions in even the best situations. He does not do well with change. Add to this a new school, COVID guidelines, masking, and the constant worry of impending closures. I thought I might be setting him up for failure for his elementary school introduction. Our small group instruction at Tunkhannock, as well as the limited class sizes, allowed his teacher and the other support staff to get to know his strengths, weaknesses, his needs, and the exact way that he learned best to motivate him to meet his goals. He had a hugely successful kindergarten year. This continued into first grade. Even with the return to normal or pre-COVID class sizes, the groups were at mostly manageable levels. The extra support staff funded by grants made a huge difference in the 21-22 school year. Our paraprofessionals in this district have more on their plate than any other surrounding district, covering classes when subs aren't available, teaching small group and cup times, most importantly, providing individualized attention for those students who have higher needs. I have experience in behavioral health and special education settings, but these observations come purely from a parent standpoint. The needs of even the typical students in our district are much higher these days than even just a few years ago. I'm curious if anyone on this board has entered a K-6 classroom in the past 5 years, or even the past 2 years. While I may no longer work in the field, I am extremely active as a volunteer, and I promise that you would be shocked at the level of needs present in every classroom in this district. This is one of the many reasons that I feel strongly our class sizes need to remain at or below 20 students. There are days when even 20 are too many to manage effectively. You can thank the amazing teachers and staff for our success in maintaining order, making progress, and achieving the goals set for our district. When the consolidation began, the district settled on less than 20 students per K-2 classroom, and I believe less than 23 in the 3 through 6th grade levels. May be wrong on that number. While I understand that the numbers we saw during COVID are impossible to sustain long term, I question why we need to raise the class levels above the pre-COVID levels now. I do not remember an end date being placed on the assurance of those guaranteed class size caps. If you are abandoning that guarantee made in the consolidation process, then I'd like to know where the goalpost has been moved to. Do we have a new maximum per class? Is there a cap, or do we just keep increasing class sizes every year or two until students start to fall through the cracks? The staff here know our kids. They know who lives with someone other than a parent, who depends on school breakfast and lunch to meet their nutritional needs, which student needs firm direction, and also those who need to be shown extra grace and love. If you add an extra 3 to 5 kids per class, how will they get to know each of them in the same way? Students will definitely not receive the same quality of education that we have grown accustomed to at Tunkhannock Area School District. I sat in on a recent Title I meeting and was able to see the data analysis for the progress our students made this year in ELA and math. I learned that in addition to the Cubbon tier for ELA we currently have in place, there's a plan to add math supports for next year. This is phenomenal news, and I am excited to see it come to fruition. However, I question, how will this be done when the days are already full, we're increasing class sizes, and support staff has been reduced for the upcoming year? This board is responsible for introducing policies and practices that will best meet the educational needs of our students. I ask, how will increasing class sizes help our students? How will it help our staff achieve the ever-increasing goals that they have to meet? We are seeing qualified educators leaving this profession in droves due to the increased demands, reduction of funding and supports, and the increase in tragedies at schools across our nation. Our SEL program is amazing for helping our students to recognize their feelings and learn ways to appropriately express themselves and seek help when needed. How will they get the help if their teachers are too overwhelmed to notice? How many will slip through the cracks of the system before we say enough is enough?
Samantha, I think we forgot to time, but we have to be at or over the 4 minutes. So if you just want to wrap it up real quick.
I'm right at the end. So another thing is we've been building our C3 Fusion program at a rapid pace, but at what expense? I'm curious as to the number of C3 students expected for enrollment this fall. The numbers were pretty low this past school year, and hopefully they're going down again. I don't want to believe that you'd be so focused on building that program that you'd give them smaller class sizes than our in-person students. I understand that everything comes down to money, but I implore you to stop seeing the numbers as more important than the people. Please work on keeping our class sizes small and manageable. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you. And again, Samantha and I and Mary Jean, we had a great meeting, very positive meeting today in my office, and you know, she makes excellent points, and we're working diligently to try to keep classes low.
Great.
Hi, my name is Bill Smirkowski, and I'm part of the transportation, the school buses. I provide the school district with 5 school bus transportation. I understand the money problem, we all are. But I would like to have some sort of an idea before October where we're going to be at. Because at the rate we're going right now, being tabled 4 times, we basically are being pushed around like we don't exist. As you all know, transportation is probably the biggest problem you have to deal with as far as being financially advised. We don't have the answer either. What we do have is a problem that we're trying to remedy on our own, but it's not going to work. Our overheads are higher than our expense that we get. I mean, we're right down to where we're living from paycheck to paycheck. And we don't know whether it's worth being here or not. I can find a job someplace else and I'm going to make more money than I do here. I don't know what you want to do about it, but there's a lot of people out there that are in the same situation I am. You had a group, or 2 other contractors that walked out of this afternoon that said it wasn't even worth coming to the meeting. Yes, we had a transportation meeting. The transportation meeting was brief, but everybody is so afraid to stand up and speak their mind that we just basically get steamrolled. I'm getting tired of it. I have done this for 34 years. And this is the first time that I feel like I'm not appreciated. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. there any other public comments? Do we have a motion to adjourn?
Second.
Motion, meeting adjourned.
When's our next meeting? July 14th?
Yep, I think so.